Welcome to the new video. Thank you to my viewers who send me the stories I will share today. The Old Lady. I'm sorry, I have work to do and I'm trying to get to sleep before 1 a.m., so the title is stupid, I know. Anyway, this story is mine and probably one of my scariest experiences. I've had lots of creepy things happen to me in my life, obviously, but this was one that I can clearly remember, that feeling of absolute terror. From about kindergarten to 5th grade, I was best friends with this one girl, let's call her Anna. When I was about 8, I went to have a sleepover at Anna's house. I always had a lot of anxiety, and when I was younger even going to sleepovers scared me, but I was feeling pretty chill with this. So a word about Anna, before we continue. She was always kind of an interesting kid, and she always told me that she was psychic. Yeah, I know, it sounds doubtful, but she would have these crazy dreams. For example, in one, she dreamed that there was a train crash, and a train actually ran off the rails a few days afterwards. Things like that, generally. And she did things where she'd talk to kids at school and say things like, "I can probably guess your favorite color, food, what have you," and even though they swore they didn't tell her, she'd guess right probably 80% of the time. Basically, she'd ask them questions and then predict the answer, and was right, like, a lot. To be honest, she kind of scared me. Anyway, I was going over to a sleepover at Anna's house. In her front yard was a big avocado tree, and we decided to go climbing on it by using one of those white plastic chairs. We were playing imaginary games or whatever, that good old fun stuff, when Anna's brother comes out of the house. He was about 12 or 13 at the time, probably, but keep in mind we were 8 and he seemed a lot bigger and scarier to us. Let's call him Mike. Mike starts coming up to the tree to mess with us, and Anna says, "No, the old lady is up here." I was kind of like, "What old lady?" because I couldn't see anything and I started wondering if she was hallucinating. Mike came closer to the tree, and Anna said it again, "The old lady is up here. She doesn't like you." Sounds exactly like a cliche horror movie, right? But I was too young and hadn't seen any horror movies yet, much less was familiar with cliches. Mike just laughed and said she was stupid and climbed on top of the plastic chair. And, I kid you not, this thing just breaks under him. Perfectly stable chair randomly breaks on Mike and makes him fall. He gets pissed off and cusses at us, but all Anna says is, "See, that's the old lady. She doesn't want you up here." I was pretty scared at this point, but was trying to play it cool. Obviously, the chair could have broken because Mike was way heavier than either of us. But why would Anna say that kind of thing beforehand? We went into the house after that, to get a snack probably, and Anna told me more about the old lady. She said that the old lady was dead, and liked to hang out in the avocado tree and the closet in her bedroom. She said that the old lady liked her and they were friends, but hated Mike and threw avocados at him. Now, I was kind of just deciding that the chair breaking had been a coincidence, and she just wanted to have her fun and games with an imaginary friend. I understood that and was all cool, so we had some snacks and played outside more and had fun. Fast forward to later that night, after dinner, and we're going to bed. Both of us can't fit in Anna's tiny bed, so we set up camp on the floor. I ended up with my head right near the closet door, which was open a crack, but I had pretty much forgotten about the old lady. We talked for a bit about whatever 8-year-olds talk about, and then I ended up falling asleep. You guys should know that from pretty much a newborn, I suffered from night terrors. According to the parentals, I would wake up in the middle of the night for no reason and just scream and cry like I was seeing the most terrifying thing, and there was no comforting me until I fell back asleep. I actually got diagnosed with night terrors by a doctor at probably 6 or 7 months and had them less frequently as I got older. At the time of this story, I hadn't had a night terror for about a good year, at least not a memorable one, but that night I remember having one of them. The thing about night terrors, or my night terrors, at least, was that the dream was usually something nonsensical, for example, logs floating down a river or a flower made of amethyst. But these dreams, no matter how random they were, always invoked utter terror and had me waking up in a panic attack. I can't remember what I dreamed about that night, something about moonlight and window panes, but I woke up sweating, breathing hard, and crying, like not super loud sobbing, just quiet crying. I turned my head and saw that the closet door was a little more open than it had been before, and Anna was lying quietly awake next to me. All she said was, "There she is." And then the closet light switched on, off, on, off. I remember I just went straight into a panic attack, in total fear of whatever was in that closet, because I may not have had much knowledge of the paranormal at the time, but I still knew that lights didn't turn on and off by themselves, much less twice. Anna's mom had to come in and calm me down, and I think I went back to sleep eventually. The girl who wasn't. I lived in a house from hell for 4 years. From age 11 to almost 16. There was always something happening. Doors flying open and shut, voices, footsteps. Nothing ever stayed where you put it. I was alone a lot because both my parents worked and I was constantly terrified. One of the most gut-disturbing things, though, was the girl in my bathroom. Every time I walked by my bathroom, which was constantly since it was right outside my bedroom, I saw a little girl with blonde curled hair and a rose-colored dress. She just stood there, staring, looking like a photograph from 1905. I started closing the door so I could walk, but without seeing her, but she was always there when I opened it. Once I stepped in past her, I couldn't see her anymore, but I could feel her there. I felt sorry for her, because she was stuck there, just like me, but probably forever. As the years went by and things in the house continued to get worse, and she started seeming darker, I started feeling like she wasn't a little girl. I knew there was something ugly in the house, and I felt like it was presenting this sympathetic figure to me. Then I started thinking I was losing my mind. One day, when I was 14, I had a friend from out of town come stay with me for a week. I hadn't told her anything whatsoever about the house because I didn't think she would come if I did. Right after she got there, we were sitting in my room and she went to go to the bathroom. About a minute later, she came back in with a puzzled look on her face. "So, there's a little girl in your bathroom?" She hangs out in there. Blonde hair? Curls? Pink dress? Yeah, you know that's not really a little girl, don't you? I almost threw up. I was so relieved and terrified and excited and ready to run out of that house screaming. She stopped using that bathroom the rest of the week, and I used it as little as possible without pissing off my parents, who did not want to believe. Eventually we moved out, and I could not have been happier. I distanced myself from it mentally as much as I could. Then, when I was 18, I took a friend on a road trip to gather and pack up a few things I had left at the house. My parents hadn't managed to sell the house and wouldn't for 5 years. The minute we got on the property, my friend felt uncomfortable. When we came around the bend in the long, steep driveway, he went completely white. I could tell something was wrong, but he kept insisting he was okay, so we got to work. After a while he asked to use the bathroom, and I directed him to mine. Not 20 seconds after he left, he came running back in for breath, and he slammed the door shut behind him. He started babbling on about a blonde little girl who really isn't a little girl. All of a sudden he went dead still, looked me in the eye, and said very solemnly, "She isn't happy with you. You left, and you weren't supposed to." We threw whatever we could grab in 2 trips to my car after I walked into another bathroom and waited outside the door and got the hell out at top speed. Videotape. Years ago, there was a group of 3 girls that went to high school together. They were all my best friends, and on night during the summer holidays, we decided to have a sleepover party. They spent all day planning their sleepover, and because they were all horror fans, they decided to rent a scary movie. It was late at night when the three girls piled into a car and drove to their local video rental store, but it was closed. The girls spent the next half hour driving around town looking for a video store that was still open. Eventually, they found a small shop located in a side street and went inside. The girls could not agree on a film to rent, so one of the girls came up to the women behind the counter and asked her if she had any suggestions. The women told her she had just the thing for them and disappeared into the back room. While they were waiting, one of the girls noticed a videotape lying on the counter. It didn't have a box cover or a label, and it seemed to be very dirty and stained. She was curious to see what it was and reached out to pick it up. Just then the woman came running out from the back room, slamming her hand down on the tape, pulling it away. With a strange smile on her face, she said, "That's not something you girls should be watching." When they asked her what it was, the women said not to touch it, and all she would say was that it was a home movie. Then she handed them an old horror movie and told them that would be much better for them to watch. Eventually, the girls agreed to rent the tape that the women suggested. While she was in the back room searching for the film, one of the girls took the opportunity to swipe the mysterious videotape and stuffed it in her purse. Later that night, when the girls returned home, the girl who stole the tape took it out of her purse and convinced the other two to watch it. They put the tape in the video recorder and pressed play. All of a sudden the power went out and the room was plunged into darkness. However, the television was still on. With a crackle of static, the video started playing, and on the screen, they saw women tied to a wooden stake. She was surrounded by angry men and women who were carrying burning touches. They were shouting and spitting on her, and then they set fire to the wood beneath the woman's feet. The women began laughing maniacally, and the people started yelling out things like "Burn the witch" and "This is your punishment for practicing black magic." As the flames rose higher and higher, looking at the woman's face, she screamed out a curse, saying all who witnessed her death will suffer the same fate in 2 days' time. There was a screech of static, and the VCR began making skipping sounds before it suddenly cut off. The terrified girls sat in the dark for a long time until the power came back on. They tried to convince each other that it must have been some type of prank. After a while, they agreed that they should return the tape immediately. When they arrived at the location of the video store, it was gone. All they found was an abandoned building and an empty lot. 2 days later, all three of the girls were dead. The first girl was found floating in a swimming pool. Her body was burned beyond recognition. The charred remains of the second girl were discovered in the middle of a park, and the third girl's body was found in a furnace. When the police were investigating the mysterious deaths, they thought that it was a very strange coincidence that all three girls had burned to death on the same day. In each case, the police thought it had been spontaneous combustion, but the weirdest thing about it was that nothing around them had even been singled by the flames. They found a trash can outside the house of one of the girls. It had been set on fire and was burned out. Everything inside it was destroyed except for a videotape, which had been inexplicably left untouched by the flames.